Good morning, everyone. I love memes and comics. I think that they say a lot without saying a lot of words, right? And so there's two people in hazmat suits with "the end is nigh" signage, and it says, "Just look at them, complete lunatics," and they're looking at a family heading to the beach, and they're dressed in regular beach attire. Just in case you're listening only, I think stuff like this is spot on, right? Like this is the schism between people who believe in all the rhetoric of the mainstream media and people who just are done with that, done with the fear, right? Here's another one. Here's a guy in a full hazmat suit standing beside a woman in a t-shirt, and the woman in the t-shirt says, "This is all part of a larger agenda," and the guy in the hazmat suit says, "I think you're being paranoid." Spot on, bang. I love stuff that just absolutely nails it, right? Like, okay, you're willing to believe the whole mask thing. Do you remember the glory holes? Glory holes, like, this is 2020. Welcome to 2020. Aliens is next up, everyone. But for now, the BC government is saying, according to Global News, try glory holes for safer sex during coronavirus. The BC CDC says. So that has spawned another meme, right? I'm talking about memes here. So portable glory hole, $90, down from $900. I mean, couldn't you just keep the fridge box or like another larger box, right? This seems like a lot of work. Holding something, I don't know. Many jokes, none of them appropriate. Okay, so earlier in the week, there was a report that a Canadian mask company that did not have a Canadian factory was given $133 million to produce PPE for Canada. And this is to increase our local supply of PPE, right? So CSON, I think that's how you say that, is reporting Medicom announces Montreal's location of new Canadian mask production facility. And they're saying in this that they should be up and running by August. And it's August, and this was released in April. And I'm just going to find where it says that. Hold on. Okay, it says July here. I read August they'll be producing, so whatever. So it says Medicom has confirmed that their first Canadian mask manufacturing facility will open near their Montreal head office by July 2020 and will create 33 permanent jobs. And here is the Quebec Ministry of Economy and Innovation. It says Quebec grants $4 million to Medicom to accelerate the construction of a factory for N95 masks and surgical masks. And I believe SNC-Lavalin was the one who built the factory as well. So yeah, keep it all in the family. It says the government of Quebec is granting $4 million loan to Medicom through Investment Quebec to accelerate the establishment in Montreal of a plant that will produce several dozen million N95 masks and level 3 surgical masks. Manufacturing of the latter will begin next July, while manufacturing of N95 masks will begin in August. Ultimately, the project will create 33 permanent jobs and meet the needs of the health system. So I called Medicom this morning and asked them if their factory was set up and when did it open. And they told me, yes, it was set up and it opened in July. And I said, do you have a press release or anything, like any link that I can look at that is official that says that? Like, we open the doors here, here's the ribbon cutting, whatever it is. Do you have anything? And he sent me to a voicemail box. He said, "Oh, I'll put you in touch with the right person." Now, it was like 9:02 that I was making this phone call, so maybe they weren't in yet. But I haven't seen any press releases, and I went and looked on their website, on Medicom's website, etc. But I haven't seen any press releases saying, our factory's open and we're now producing 50% capacity or 100% capacity. Hiring 30 people is no joke. That's not necessarily easy to get, right? And so, like, how quickly can you ramp up? How quickly is it working? I was just being curious, and they didn't have answers for me, so that's unfortunate. So here's June 3rd, and it says the Medicom Group, one of the world's leading manufacturers of surgical and respiratory masks, announced the further expansion of its global footprint with the opening of a mask manufacturing facility in Singapore. That was June 3rd, and it says earlier this year, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that the Canadian government had placed orders for tens of millions of masks from Medicom, and that an agreement had been reached to support the opening of a manufacturing facility in Canada to help ensure ongoing supply for local demand. So that's interesting. Here's the Toronto Sun article. It says Quebec company with no factory snags $133 million mask contract to make PPE. No mask there, the M. Got me to say mask. A company in Quebec has been awarded $133 million in sole-sourced federal orders to manufacture PPE, even though it didn't have a factory in Canada. AMD Medicom Inc. was given the 10-year contract, and some MPs are now demanding to see the terms of the contract, according to a report by Blacklock's reporter on Tuesday. As small and medium-sized businesses, we want to know, does everybody have the same opportunity to produce personal protective equipment and sell it, or is the federal government picking winners and losers? Spoiler alert, they're picking winners and losers. Here's Blacklock's reporter, and she says, new documents. Feds gave $381 million sole source contracts to Quebec company with no factory to make masks, 3 times the figure previously disclosed. And she's got. Well, this is a screenshot of just a response, it looks like at this point. But it says, to date, agency has not received surgical masks from Medicom's Canadian production facility, said Government Canada Health spokesperson Natalie Mohammed. Terms of contract not disclosed. It's obviously very important that this be up and running. Mitch Davis, AMD, on June 5th. So maybe they're up and running. Maybe things are going. But as far as Blacklock's reporter, their sources, as of 1 hour ago, they haven't received any Canadian masks yet. Medicom says the factory opened in July. So that seems like a lag time of at least a couple of weeks maybe, if it opened it opened July 31st. So that's 10 days and no masks produced in 10 days, but the factory's open? And no press release for the factory being open, no ribbon cutting, no glad handing with politicians. That seems weird, doesn't it? Where'd that money go? There's $4 million to set it up from the Quebec government, $300 million from the Canadian government, and they set up a factory in Singapore, I guess, maybe. And where's that Canadian factory? I'll update you if they call me back. I'm not expecting them to call me back. I said, hey, I'm looking for information. Just leave a link or whatever. I could maybe be more forceful. I'll work on my forceful tone. Okay, moving on. Canada. Liberals turn over thousands of pages on We decision. Lawyers now vetting documents. So there are multiple problems currently with the Liberal government. So not just the big project or the big giveaway for the masks that I just talked about. That's not insignificant. $100 million, right? $84 million, right? But this one, that's almost $1 billion. $543 million, purse up to $912 million, right? I think it was going to go over $912 million if it got through. But there's this one, and then there's another one, the rent assistance, the business rent assistance issue. So that's going to be interesting because all of these are just being piled on. The problem is, the more complex the problem, the more complex the issue, the less people care about it. That's very strange because they just believe it's a conspiracy, I think. They just believe like people are making it up. And they're not making it up. I think they're just behaving this poorly, consistently. The Liberals, I mean. Okay, the federal Liberal government has handed over thousands of pages of documents related to the We controversy to a House of Commons committee, which lawyers are now vetting for personal information and cabinet secrets. The Finance Committee demanded the documents last month as it probes whether Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's relationship with We Charity influenced the government's ill-fated decision to have the organization run a federal student volunteer program. Committee members are hoping the documents will shed light on the discussions that led to the decision to have We run the Canada Student Service Grant before the deal was cancelled amid controversy in July. Yet, while the Liberals turned more than 5,000 pages over to the committee ahead of Saturday's deadline, it wasn't clear when they would be released to members as committee lawyers go through them to prevent the release of the protected information. We don't know, Conservative finance critic Pierre Poilievre said during a news conference on Sunday when asked whether a committee member would get the documents. We have asked. They have not given us a timeline. So, We is blowing up, and again, distance, time, like if this happened in June and now we're August going into September, the unions and the press are whipping up fears about schools reopening and people are going to forget. And if they forget, the controversy just goes away because the whole point of the controversy is to show no confidence in the government. And if the government just carries on as if what they're doing is supported by the people and the NDP and the Bloc Québécois don't have any overtures to the Conservatives to say, yeah, we're willing to bring down the government over this, then nothing happens. Then it's okay. Okay? Here's We Charity's statement in response to testimony by Charity Intelligence before the Standing Committee on Finance. Now, they talk about We Charity Foundation. During the testimony, Poilievre said, he was talking about a strange layer to protect We Charity from what was the word he used? Liability. So they were trying to protect We from having liability from We delivering the program. I'm not exactly sure the logic behind this, but this is the lawyerese they released. Again, this is reported by newswire.ca. Okay, it says We Charity Foundation, or why We Charity Foundation. It is unfortunate and misleading for Miss Kate Baham, Managing Director of Charity Intelligence, and others on the Finance Committee to refer to We Charity Foundation as a shell foundation, shell company, or real estate holding company. A shell company is like, the shell's empty, right? Like, it's like you can see the outside of it, but there's nothing inside the shell. That's why they call it a shell company. And, well, okay, I'll read the next part here. During a global health pandemic, the Canadian government asked We Charity to assume all liability for delivering the CSSG, including for the tens of thousands of students and all involved not-for-profit organizations. We Charity Foundation was only introduced as a party to the contract after this liability request by the government. We Charity Foundation is a registered charity, and contrary to public statements, the We Charity Foundation had never previously held any funds or real estate. We Charity and all its resources and expertise was fully utilized to deliver the program. So if it never held funds or real estate, it was like a shell in that it was a name and nothing else, empty inside. Like, okay, like, it's very strange. And then did you see the former board of directors, Michelle, what was her name? Michelle Douglas. During her testimony, during her opening statement, she said, I did not leave the position of chair of the board under usual circumstances. And she explained the circumstances surrounding her leaving in great detail, talking about concerns she had around finances, concerns she had that weren't being shared with her. And then after asking about all this stuff, she was asked to resign, and she was like, well, I can't do my job anyway, so I guess I'll resign. I think that's a bad move. Make them fire you, and have them write down why. But really, like, she stepped down and that was that. But the way that they're describing this casts doubt on everything else, all the rest of the legalese. It seems like it was written, ad hoc afterwards in a lawyer's office with the intentions behind what they would like to have said at the time instead of what they actually said. That's what I think. Okay, here's the governance and board. This is talking directly about the chair of the board resigning and the change of the entire board and why that happened. Okay, and again, very detailed testimony by the former chair about all the concerns that she had that were ignored, and when she brought them up, she was dismissed. Okay, back to this. There continues to be misstatements about the We Charity Board of Directors. In the fall of 2019, We Charity started a process of renewal of the Board of Directors in anticipation of We Charity's 25th anniversary in 2020. And due to the fact that a number of board members had served for durations of more than 5 and even 10 years, We Charity acknowledges and thanks Michelle Douglas for 14 years of service on the board. During the COVID-19 crisis, difficult and fast decisions were being made, and there was a difference of opinion between Miss Douglas and We Charity senior management. Miss Douglas transitioned in a different manner than the other board members. It was a trying time for everyone, and the outcome was regrettable. Sure. So again, she gave a very detailed a detailed timeline about her concerns and what wasn't addressed and why she stepped down. And they're saying, yeah, it was different than other board members, and it was a trying time for everyone. Moving on, and they really do. Like, today, North American's board is composed of 8 skilled individuals. Sure. I mean, you could tell yourself this, but I think that anybody who watched the testimony knows that it stinks. It stinks. It stinks. Here is moving on to the rent and the connection to the PMO through Miss Telford. Her husband works at the company that was outsourced to give the rent relief program. Rent relief program is what I was trying to say at the beginning of this. Okay, Greg McLean says, while a conflict of interest screen was erected for Telford, it still begs the question of how organizations with tight liberal ties are so successful at landing big contracts to deliver government programs. How do they do it? Here's Pierre Poilievre, and man, this is a 10-minute speech. And I had all sorts of times here that we were going to go through, and it was going to be like about a minute. I'm going to just show you the first 10 seconds, and then somebody else cut 2 minutes from this speech. So I'm going to show you the first minute of this cut and give both links. So you can go watch the whole one of the 2-minute one or watch this whole 9-minute one. The whole 9-minute one really ties it all together, but he's long-winded. He's like me. I'm like him. I don't know, whatever. He talks a lot. And this one tightens it up. This one tightens up and puts it in context. But he didn't add this one didn't add the beginning quote, and I really like the beginning quote because I talk about it a lot. They're trying to make this as complex as possible because people won't believe it if it's too complex. Okay, take it away, Mr. Poilievre.
Well, they say that complexity is the refuge of the scoundrel. And so often when governments make programs unnecessarily complicated, it's not out of incompetence, it's because somebody stands to benefit from all of the complexity. We know that.
Okay, I'll leave that there, and then I'm going to jump right to this one. Just start it. Here we go.
The Prime Minister created, the government created a rental assistance program, which the Canadian Federation of Independent Business says has been a disaster. CMHC, which is strangely running this program, exists for the sole purpose of providing affordable housing, not commercial real estate. And of course, that agency was not able, therefore, to deliver the program and needed to subcontract it. And who got the subcontract? Well, a firm whose senior vice president is the spouse of the Prime Minister's chief of staff. Now, of course, the easy way to deliver this program would have been through CRA. CRA already had a program stood up to deliver a wage subsidy. Businesses would simply have shown that they met the eligibility by demonstrating their revenues were down 70%, submitting their rent bill to CRA, and CRA could have deposited the money in their accounts. But well, we find out that it's a company whose senior vice president is the Prime Minister's chief of staff's husband. Now, this contract is at least $56 million. Right now, it looks like the administrative costs that the company will receive is worth almost 10% of the full value of the program.
So, yeah, there are concerns here. The same concerns as the same concerns as all of the other issues that I've been talking about this morning, improperly giving contracts to liberal-friendly firms that just happen to know the right person to talk to at exactly the right time, and boom, they get it. Unbelievable. Uncanny. Coincidence, right? Conservatives seek investigation into Canada's outsourced $84 million rent subsidy program. This is the Conservative Party this is Global News reporting. The Conservative Party wants to know who was responsible for outsourcing the federal government's $84 million rent subsidy program during the novel coronavirus pandemic, which was awarded to a company where the spouse of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's chief of staff, Katie Telford, holds a senior vice president position. Speaking to reporters on Sunday, Conservative finance critic Pierre Poilievre said he would be submitting a request to the lobbying commissioner for an investigation on Monday. So often when governments make programs unnecessarily complicated, it is not out of incompetence, it is because somebody stands to benefit from all of the complexity, he said. We want to know how that decision happened, who pushed this multi-billion-dollar program out of the department where it belonged so that it would be contracted to a company that just happened to have as its senior vice president the husband of the Prime Minister's chief of staff. This does say multi-billion, but I think it's multi-million. So I didn't misspeak, but perhaps Global News didn't edit this, or maybe I didn't understand 84 million. Anyway, that's happening. That's happening. Here's Rocco Galati, and he says UK reopens schools with no masking or concerns with why the jackboots in Ontario and Canada. The absurdity and fraud of the science behind these measures is fascistically vile. And it's interesting. I'm a parent. We're going through the return to school conversations, and you have to register and all sorts of other stuff. It's very interesting what's going on. The rhetoric used by the school boards, the rhetoric used, and a lot of it is in the States, but there's some in Canada as well that is my local paper said any parents, they had a Twitter thing, any parents that are concerned about sending their kids back, we'd love to talk to you. And I was like, can parents who aren't concerned about sending their kids back also tell you what they think? Because like that's a cohort that exists, and I'm one of them, right? And I'm not concerned about COVID-19. I'm concerned about this. I'm concerned about the Marxist indoctrination in schools. This is American. Matthew R.K. His account is limited now. You can just see the top part in like his bio, and I don't even know if that's still there. It was yesterday. But he says, so this fall virtual class discussions have many potential spectators, parents, siblings, etc. in the same room. We'll never be quite sure who's overhearing the discourse. What does this do for our equity inclusion work? How much have students depended on the somewhat secure barriers of our physical classroom to encourage vulnerability? How many of us have installed some version of what happens here stays here to help this? This is grooming. This is not acceptable for a teacher, not at all. And the whole thread is full of this kind of stuff, worried about parents and families having a say in the inclusivity and equity work that they're doing. This is very, very concerning. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about COVID-19. I'm worried about the kids seeing the teachers in masks. I'm worried about the kids being encouraged to wear masks when masks don't encourage, well, healthy brains, healthy bodies, right? This is school, not indoctrination boot camp, right? And yet, here we are. They'll have PP and all sorts of other stuff, despite a lack of cases in Guelph and a lack of cases in the wider province, really. I mean, there's 70 cases a day, less than 100 cases a day for the last 7 days. I don't know how many deaths. I should probably look that up, but I haven't looked it up, so I apologize. But fundamentally, when you can't prove that something like masks work, and they're using correlation studies to prove that they work, like, oh, masks were instituted here and the cases went down, except that they ignore the fact that cases went down everywhere, regardless of whether masks were initiated or not. It's following the same kind of trend as SARS and MERS, and I think it'll probably just go away in the same way that those SARS and MERS did. But I digress. I think that having kids in schools in a situation where they have to be 6 feet apart, it's very concentration campy. It's very institutionalized. It's very not what school is supposed to be. It's very concerning. When I said concentration campy, I was looking for institutionalized. It's very. I saw a newspaper comparing concentration camps, CIA concentration camps, to the Florida school guidelines, and I don't know if that's a fair comparison, but it's certainly institutionalization for the kids, and I don't like that. I worked in institutions, and one of the things we worked hard not to do was like institutionalize them, have jargon that they had to know, and all sorts of other stuff. And do you know how many times kids are supposed to wash their hands when they take their off their PPE and put on their PPE? If they come into somebody else's personal space, like to play tag, they have to put their PPE on. Come on, it's such a ridiculous. It will not last. I can't see it lasting. Really, it's very, very, very concerning. The guidelines, I don't know that it's in the best interest of the kids or the staff or anybody. I don't know that it'll help. I don't know that it'll cut down on any infections. In fact, I think it'll probably make people sicker. A lot of the guidelines that are put in place for the return to school. So yeah, that's what I think. Here's the last story for today, and I probably don't even need to do this one, but this is how protests are put together, right? Like, this person's committing immigration fraud, bringing people in with fake jobs, and she used her connections to rally people together to set up a fake protest in favor of meng in Vancouver at the Superior Court, right? This is for the extradition trial. So this article goes through that, and the fact that this person here, Joey Zhang, uses multiple companies to commit immigration fraud. Like by now, the way you can get into Canada through a company is by owning it. You can have up to 5 owners, right? So if you invest in her company, you can come to Canada as an owner of a Canadian company, right? Like, this is not a big loophole, but like, if you've got the means to do it, and she clearly does, and she's got connections as well, like, look at the people she can gather. It's very interesting what's going on, right? And this is not just an isolated incident, right? This is just like the misspellings of the names. This is the modus operandi. This is what they're doing. This is how they operate, right? Like, hire a bunch of people, pay them good enough money so that they'll do the thing. And through here, like, she contacts, through this article, she contacts a movie producer, right? And he called some friends who know actors, and he thought it was for a dance video or music video or whatever. And not to excuse his involvement, but a lot of times, I mean, how do you know the difference, right? If you're a movie guy doing music shoots and music videos and all that other stuff, you get phone calls like that, right? Like, oh yeah, protester, or we need party or whatever, right? Like, especially these days, it's very, very, I don't know. But it's concerning the room that this person is allowed to and given to operate within Canada after using the immigration system the way she has, after setting up these protests. And it's not like the government is really cracking down on this stuff, right? So, man, Concerning stuff happening all around our country. And what are we going to do about it? I don't know. I don't even know if there's even a real possibility we're going to see a recall of the full House of Parliament, like everybody coming back to the House of Commons before the end of the year. And what happens, right? Like it just continues down the curve. We can't forget getting a confidence vote. We can't even get Parliament to be back in full session. Like we've got this kneecapped version of the Finance Committee and the COVID Committee meeting in the House, pretending that it's Parliament, and it's not. And what are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? There's nothing we can do about it because the NDP and the Bloc and the Liberals are just fine with what's going on. Doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter what I think. They're fine with it. Isn't that crazy? Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.